The main features of the revised regulations include a stronger administrative role for national telecoms commissions, facilitating the entry of new service providers, and non-discrimination in interconnection agreements. Interconnection is a vital component of the operations of telecommunications services in a competitive environment and impacts the prices of services to consumers. The public was made aware of interconnection first during the protracted negotiations between Cable and Wireless, Digicel, and then AT&T, when the market was liberalized initially and competition introduced. Currently, Cable and Wireless and Digicel are renegotiating interconnection agreements. Ectel's legal advisor, David Cox, says enactment of the revised regulations would mean a better deal for consumers.
In St. Vincent and in St. Lucia, Cable and Wireless and Digicel are renegotiating the existing interconnection agreements, and they have a deadline essentially which will expire at the end of September. It's important if the regulatory system wants to be able to have as much authority to review those agreements as possible and to make the right kinds of decisions for consumers as possible, that these regulations are enforced. And so there's some real urgency on our part and on the part of the governments to make sure that the regulations are passed.
While the new legislation cannot stop interconnection disputes, it makes provision for such cases to be resolved quicker and more fairly. Cox says it could mean a reduction in the number of disputes, as companies will know what an interconnection agreement will contain before entering the market.
There will always be disputes where interconnection is concerned, because interconnection is, frankly, the single most important issue in the regulation of telecoms, and it will always be a contentious issue. What these regulations do, however, make possible is for those disputes to be resolved more speedily, to be resolved more fairly, and to be resolved in a manner that causes the least possible delay or upset to the market.
Cox says revision of the legislation was vital as components of the existing law in Ectel member states were deemed weak.
Existing regulations, although they were adequate for the time, contain significant weaknesses. Specifically, they did not contain strong enough provisions for disputes. They also did not contain strong enough provisions for dealing with or for promoting agreement at the earliest possible time, and therefore it was possible for a company which was already in the market to delay granting interconnection for as long as possible.
The new regulations have some major benefits for consumers. It makes provisions for postpaid customers of one telecoms provider to move across to the competitor and keep their previous number. It also requires the providers to justify their interconnection rates by accounting for the real cost of connecting customers. Cox predicts a reduction in the cost of calls between providers within 2 years. Alison Kentish, HTS News, Channel 4.